again, I hope everyone's staying safe and warm, and more importantly, having our kids in the classroom and making sure that we're feeding those kids. And I'll say this before I go over the agenda: the toughest decision for a superintendent, in my opinion, is whether or not to close school on these days, because one, you're looking at child safety as it relates to getting to school, but also to making sure that all your students are fed and are warm. So thank you to those that are doing some NTI feeding and other areas too. So we appreciate that. But again, welcome, and hopefully everyone's staying nice and warm, and more importantly, looking out for our students. But today's agenda is a very packed agenda with a lot of great information. Some things that we'll go through. First of all, I'll give a few updates, but I'll also take over for the department with Jennifer Ginn. She's feeling a little under the weather, so I'll handle our grant updates that we have. We also have Dr. Brian Perry that will be talking about the legislative session. Currently, we're in the neighborhood of around 40 bills that we're tracking, but Dr. Perry is going to talk more about the process and who's a part of the education committees and other items of that nature. So we're not going to go through all 40 bills, but we will be giving you an overview. I also have Associate Commissioner Matt Ross that'll be talking about the automated external defibrillator funding. That's from our Office of Finance and Operations. We also have from the Kentucky Center for Statistics, Ms. Jessica Fletcher, who will be talking about a new website that's going live. It's communicating college and career opportunities to Kentucky students, and you'll hear more about that shortly. Also, we're going to talk about human trafficking awareness with Christina Weeder. She'll be here with the Office of Continuous Improvement and Support. We also have representation from our Office of Education Technology. We'll have Associate Commissioner David Couch and Robert Hackworth. They'll be talking about our digital readiness report, and also some fishing, biggest fish in the tank. Keep your fingers out and your school safe. So I always enjoy what Bob has to share with us when it comes to fishing and how important that is. Also, too, we'll have, again, Associate Commissioner David Couch and Chuck Austin. We'll talk about our CUES, our Connected User Experience, and again, from the Office of Education Technology. Again, we do have a long agenda, but we will try to keep it as specific as possible and try to keep within time constraints. I will be closing with some discussion on the budget and where we are about SEEK. There's some important information I'll need to share. Some positive information, but also some things that you'll need to be aware of as we move forward. So with that being said, we'll switch over to the next slide, please. Thank you. We are trying to start our town halls. As last week, the weather got us a little bit for a couple of those. And our goal is to make sure that we have these town halls in person, if at all possible. So if we have to close or have to postpone the first one, we may look at having the second one. If it's a second opportunity, we may look at a virtual if we have to postpone again. But for right now, you can see the dates on the screen. Thank you so much to our co-op directors for their cooperation, and also the people across the Commonwealth that are helping us with this town hall. Looking forward to being out there and talking to people about Model Framework 2.0. So I won't go through all those dates, but you can see the ones that are in January. So next slide, please. And again, along the same lines, our co-ops have been great to help us with our SEEK Roadshow. Thank you so much to Matt and Che and others in OFO that have been working our SEEK Roadshow. I believe we've had 2 of these so far, and we feel like those have been very productive. We've had some legislators to attend. Also, if you look at the agenda, at the schedule, it's also very important for superintendents. If you have some type of questions, if you want to send those to us in advance, that's perfectly fine. But we look forward to having you, and you can invite others. Again, we've had legislators, we've had district finance officers. You're welcome to have others that are there, but make sure that your co-op director and their staff know how many people that you're bringing along so that they're fully prepared for it. So again, thank you to OFO and also our co-op directors for making these possible. I think there's a lot of great information there. Next slide, please. As I've said before, one of the best things about my job is being able to visit districts, visiting some of the great things that are going on in the Commonwealth. And of course, anytime that you can give out a check, or not necessarily maybe hand and help with giving out a check, it's always a very big positive. And one went to Ms. Jenna Stewart. Ms. Jenna Stewart is a 5th grade mathematics teacher at Long Branch Elementary School up in Boone County. So congratulations to Superintendent Oswald and in the group there in Boone County. She was the Milken Family Foundation National Educator Award winner. Probably the best thing about this wasn't necessarily her reaction, but is the reaction of her students, and to see the love and the caring that they have. And in their words, she makes it real for them. So again, it was great to see the students' reaction. It was great to be a part of that presentation. And also, too, we really appreciate First Lady Brittany Bashir to be a part of that with Senior Vice President Jane Foley. Next slide, please. Also, we have some report. The National Computer Science Report has some great highlights for Kentucky. The 2024 State of Computer Science Education Report shows that Kentucky continues to make progress in bringing computer science and opportunities to students. Also, too, the Code.org National Report also found that in 2024, 76% of public high schools in Kentucky provided foundational computer science courses, with 76% of those high schools residing in rural communities. Also, 34% of the students participating in these courses were female, again from previous years and above the national average. So congratulations to all the districts across the state that are part of this initiative and helping us make this happen for the students of the Commonwealth. Next slide, please. Again, as said before, with the Director of Communications, feeling a little under the weather. We appreciate all she does in her department, but I'll handle the updates as it relates to our competitive grants from KDE. For fiscal year 25, there's a Kentucky AED grant. The grant applications are due February 28th at 4 p.m. The award amount, $2,000 per AED award. And the matching funds, there's no requirement for matching funds. And you can see that some other information as it's presented there. But again, that application is due February 28th, 4 p.m. And the award amount is $2,000 per award. Also, we have the Kentucky Numeracy Counts Grant. The grant applications are due March 6th at 4 p.m. Again, grant applications for the Kentucky Numeracy Counts Grant for fiscal year 25 are due March 26, 4 p.m. The award amount is $70,000 per awarded district, and also matching funds are not required. But also, if you look there, the Kentucky Numeracy Grant Fund shall only be used to purchase approved high-quality research and evidence-based curriculum aligned to curriculum through K-3 academic standards. For more information, you can always visit our webpage you can see the link there, or by emailing Ms. Jennifer Bryant. Next slide, please. We also have nominations open for the 2025 Robinson Award for Diversity and Equity in Public Education. The criteria for this award includes, but it's not limited to, successful efforts in closing socioeconomic and/or racial achievement gaps, and significantly improving student learning, student achievement, other measured outcomes among students of color or economically disadvantaged students. The nominations will be accepted through January 15th, which is coming up tomorrow, and they can be made at the link that you see before you, at the 2025 Samuel Robinson Award for Diversity and Equity in Public Education on a Google form. Again, if you have any questions, you can contact us about that award, but there is a link for a Google form for you to fill out. Next slide, please. This time, as mentioned a little bit earlier, Dr. Brian Perry will talk to us about the 2025 legislative session. He is our Director of Government Relations. I'll turn it over to Dr. Perry.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. As everyone is aware, the 2025 session got started last week. They gavelled out at the end of the week and will not be back until February 4th. That said, as the Commissioner noted, we had a bunch of bills get filed the first week. We've flagged about 41 right out of the gate that we'll be tracking. We'll see a lot more bills get filed before those filing deadlines hit late to mid-late February, the 18th and 19th there. So we're just going to run through some kind of general overview of the session. I imagine for a lot of you, this will be old news, but hopefully if there's some new folks watching, this will be helpful. So this is just an overview of the session calendar. You'll see that the last day of the session will be March 28th. So they'll adjourn sine die then, and will not be back until next year. So lots to happen between now and then. Next slide, please. So you can follow along pretty well, even though if you're not in the annex or in Frankfurt. So the session calendar and the committee schedule calendar are both available at the link there. You can see that, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but primary and secondary education will meet on Wednesdays at 8 a.m. Eastern. House Appropriations and Revenue will meet on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern. And then Senate Education will be on Thursdays at 10:30 Eastern. And Senate Appropriations and Revenue will meet on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. You can watch live both at KET and at the LRC YouTube site. So generally everything will stream on KET on one of their two live channels. Sometimes things do get bumped over to the LRC site when there's more committees happening than they can stream at once. So if you don't see it on KET, just hop on the YouTube site and you should be able to find it there. The YouTube site also has archived versions. So if you miss a committee, you can find it there. So then on the bill side, you see the link there. That will take you to all of the bills. There's pages for the House and Senate. And so you can kind of follow along there. Next slide, please. So we had a big change that I don't think a lot of people saw coming. The House split their education committee into two separate committees. So we now have the primary and secondary education committee, which will be chaired by Representative Scott Lewis. He's a former superintendent of Hancock and Ohio counties. His vice chair will be Representative Mike Kleins from Northern Kentucky, who you can see spent a long career with the Roman Catholic Diocese of Covington. So the post-secondary education committee, which I know doesn't really pertain to us a whole lot, but just wanted to mention it, that will be chaired by Representative Tipton, who we're all familiar with as the former chair of the Education Committee, and his vice chair will be Shane Baker, who is also his vice chair of the Education Committee. So I don't think we'll see a lot happen in the post-secondary committee that will be of interest to us. Maybe some scholarship bills, things like that. We'll go through there, but I did want to make people aware of that big change. Just so we're clear, the Senate did not split their education committee. So we now have 3 education committees, 2 in the House, 1 in the Senate. Someone asked the other day how this will work once we get to the interim session when we have interim joint committees. Traditionally, those are co-chaired by the 2 chairs, the House chair and the Senate chair of the respective committees. So a little unclear how that will work as we move into the interim this year, but we'll see. Next slide, please. So we did pick up a few new members of the Senate Education Committee as well as the House Primary and Secondary Education. So you can see the list there. A few new members on each, a little shuffling going on of the committees, but happy to see some familiar faces on both, and looking forward to working with both Chair West and Chair Lewis, both of whom we've already been in contact with quite a bit, I'll mention. So there you go. Next slide, please. So again, we saw a lot of legislation already get introduced. So some of this is redundant now, as I did this last week, but I think we'll see, and you probably have heard with the defeat of Amendment 2, several leaders in both chambers, as well as other members, talking about the need to continue to look at school improvement and innovation. Definitely think we will see some bills related to that, and that conversation continue through the session. We've heard a lot over the interim about teacher and principal mentoring and induction. I think there's a real recognition that we have a lot of different alternative pathways into the classroom now, and those require some unique internship or mentoring opportunities and induction for those folks coming into the classroom that may not have been necessary when we had more folks coming out of traditional EPPs. We did see a cell phone bill get introduced last week. Representative Josh Bray filed House Bill 208, I believe. So I don't know that we will see another version of that bill. It's possible that we will, but right now we do have a cell phone bill out there. So take a look at that. We've had a couple of issues with certification crop up over the interim, and I suspect we will see some legislation get filed addressing these. We are expecting a bill to get filed addressing the praxis as a requirement. Have not seen that drop yet, but I think we will. And we also have had some conversations with members about easing the process for out-of-state certificate holders. So making it easier for certified folks from other states coming in to get into Kentucky classrooms. We did see the Interstate Mobility Compact, hope I got the name right, get adopted a few sessions ago. That is now in place as other states have adopted it, but it is limited to those states. So this conversation sort of expands on that. And that was a DoD initiative really aimed at making it easier for military spouses and family to follow their spouses around as needed and still continue their careers. So finally, we've had a lot of conversation this interim regarding English language learners. And so I think we will continue to see some bills follow that conversation. Don't want to speculate just yet on what those bills will look like, but have been happy to see those conversations really kind of take hold this session or this interim. And I think we will see some bills drop this session related to English language learners in a couple of different capacities. Obviously, that's not a comprehensive list. I'm sure we'll see lots more. I think we've already seen one bill drop that addresses the Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship. I should have put this on here. If you haven't heard, the KWIB did make some changes to the top 5 demand sectors. They took out transportation and put in education. That does open the door for students to use the Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship on the post-secondary side to pursue a teaching credential, but we would need some legislative changes to make that happen. So I think we've already seen one bill drop that opens the door potentially to include bachelor's degrees in education as an eligible pathway. So we'll likely see some other options follow that as well. So I think that's it for me. Next slide. Yep. So feel free to reach out if you ever have any questions about any bills or if you've heard anything about potential bills and you have questions, please feel free to reach out. During the session, I'm pretty much available anytime. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Perry. As we've talked several times, Dr. Perry does an excellent job of not only connecting the commissioner with legislators and setting up anything from one-on-one to some group meetings with different legislators. He also is in direct contact with so many of them on a regular basis and attending meetings of that sort. So we truly mean it. If you have any questions as it relates to any type of bill, feel free to reach out to Dr. Perry. He'll do his best to explain or find out. If we don't know, we'll try our best to find out, and maybe it's something that we need to keep our eyes on too. So again, appreciate Dr. Perry and his work with our legislature and with our legislators and the work that we do there. So we'll move on to our automated external defibrillator funding, and that's going to be Associate Commissioner Matt Ross out of the Office of Finance and Operations. So Associate Commissioner Ross.
Thank you, Commissioner. The Commissioner touched on this in sort of the update. There was an item about the AED funding, but we wanted to reiterate, we've gotten plenty of questions about it. House Bill 1 from the 2024 session provides $2.5 million in fiscal year 2024-25 for the purchase of AED for public schools. You can go ahead to the next one, please. So KDE has an RFA, which is live now. And here you can see sort of the deadlines. We already had the technical assistance webinar on January 10th, but that is available. It was recorded and is available out there. We just wanted to reiterate that these grant awards are now available. And it's $2,000 per award for AEDs for school districts, public school districts. So we just wanted to make you aware, and that's all I have. So,
Matt, just a quick question. Is there a limit to the number of grant awards that a district can get?
No, I don't believe there's a limit. There is some prioritization for districts that don't have some, or but no, there's no limit. The limit is the amount of funding, really. So
All right, thank you so much for that. I do feel that with our a lot of the budget conversations that we have, I keep Associate Commissioner Ross hopping, and I really appreciate the work of OFO and all those that are a part of everything from our food service to transportation. Also, too, Che Ritter does a great job in talking with our legislators and also with our districts and so many in that office too. So thank you for your work, and we really appreciate that. Now, this time we do have Miss Jessica Fletcher, who is with the Commonwealth Education Continuum, which I am a part of that committee, who will be talking about communicating college and career opportunities for Kentucky students. So, Ms. Fletcher, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. We are, and some of you may have seen part of this presentation at the Association of Superintendents conference a couple of months ago, but we wanted to kind of remind everyone of this platform, which will be going live on February 4th. If you could go to the next slide. Just a reminder that the Commonwealth Education Continuum kind of set out in 2021 on this path that led to the website that you're about to see. The continuum kind of called for a comprehensive strategy that not only equipped high school students with college and career information, but also as a platform for adults who are seeking to either enter the workforce, re-enter the workforce, or get a credential from one of Kentucky's public or private universities. So we now have what is called Futurity. If you'll go to the next slide, we basically tried to connect all of Kentucky's great resources, everything from Kia's financial aid options to the KY Stats tools like the Career Explorer and the Students' Right to Know, which show costs of attending public universities and the income levels that you can make. But we really kind of took all of that data and poured it into the Futurity platform that you're about to see. But in addition to that, we've also linked to the Kentucky Career Center's job portal, to the federal application for student aid, to the Work Ready Kentucky scholarship application, and some of the adult education opportunities that are present here in Kentucky. On the next slide, you will see the kind of objective of what the Futurity platform is meant to do. We have set out to create a platform that helps people from, middle school students all the way through adults well into their careers to kind of visualize their paths from classroom to either to a new career or a different career than the one they're already in. We have kind of designed this to be user-friendly for all audiences. So try to stay away from jargon terms, from terms that, Kentuckians might not necessarily understand. And ultimately, we want this site to help increase Kentucky's educational attainment rate and our labor force participation rates. And we have sectioned it off into 3 main parts. So you can use the site and the site is designed to kind of meet people where they are. So whether you are choosing your career path, whether you are trying to decide which school you want to go to get your credentials, or if you're at the point where you're finished with school and you're ready to start applying for jobs, you can do all of those through the links and features within Futurity. On the next slide, you will see a couple of screenshots from what it looks like. And after I'm finished with these slides, we might have time for a live demo and for you to ask some questions about the portal. But really, the Future Finder is the data section that my team at KY Stats really worked on to kind of connect people with current Kentucky-specific labor market information. So, you will see different careers. I think there are 700 careers in the database, and it includes high demand careers, but also basically any occupation that a student wants to look for, but high demand careers are specifically flagged. You can also see what education level you need to have and what level, what wage level is for each of the careers that are in the database. Further down on the page that you can't see here, you also will see where you can major in these occupations at Kentucky's universities. So it says like, for this example here, we have elementary school teachers. So all of the Kentucky colleges and universities that have a elementary school teaching pathway are listed on that page. And you can also sort the occupations by, you can sort them alphabetically, by demand level, and by wage level. On the next slide, you can kind of scan this with your phone if you want to look around. We will, if we have time, we'll do a demo in a second, but I don't want to stray away from the slide deck. But you can now go to futurity.org to see the website. I will warn you that we haven't totally launched yet, so you might find some glitches and bugs that we are still working out. Our formal launch day is February 4th, so hopefully everything will be worked out at that time. But if you want to look around, see what the website has to offer, you are welcome to go ahead and do so. The site is created to kind of follow and meet both accessibility requirements and federal privacy laws. So we aren't collecting any student data on the website. We are basically just have information that's available for anyone. You don't have to log in. You don't have to add a email address or any personal information to access anything on the site. On the next slide, here's just kind of an overview of how each of the sections work. You can, as I mentioned, choose your career path, continue your education, or start your career. There is a fourth resources section that will include, or already does include, resources for both educators and counselors. Also for parents who are trying to help fill out their FAFSA. There is several different resources available in that section that anyone can use or access. And we all are also kind of working on some lesson plans and ways that schools, both K-12 and post-secondary, can use sort of as educational resources to help integrate these into classroom work as well. So those won't quite be finished when we go live, but we really want to kind of see this platform as not just a new website that Kentucky offers, but as sort of a culture change to help students understand the link between their education, their classroom work, and the career that they will ultimately end up in. Next slide, please. Futurity has lots of links to career aptitude tests. We have a cost of living calculator, so people can see sort of in real time what the wages that they're looking at for the career that they might be interested in, if that provides a living wage. There are links to grants and scholarship information. There's a whole section about in-demand careers and the 5 sectors that Kentucky offers as high demand careers, and we did update those to be in alignment with the new K-Web high demand careers that Dr. Perry mentioned a few minutes ago. And finally, we have tips on resume creation, interviewing, and links to multiple job portals, including the educator portal, the educator jobs portal, KEPS, and some of the other state agency portals that are out there as well. So lots of different ways to go about looking for open jobs here in Kentucky. And then I think last slide. Oh, these are a few kind of screenshots of what the website looks like if you aren't already kind of clicking around. This is the choose your career path section where you can use the Future Finder tool. You can also click through the different high demand career featured jobs that are on that Choose Your Career Path landing page. On the next slide, you will see the featured institutions. So we have all of Kentucky's higher education institutions, both public and private, and some of the for-profits are also listed at the bottom there. But you can also see highlights of different jobs organized by education attainment level. On the next slide, here's what I was talking about with the high demand career sectors. We have lots of different ways to kind of look at the healthcare and construction, manufacturing, and logistics fields, just to understand what jobs are within those sectors. But also on those pages, we have links to scholarships associated with those occupations and a couple of links to get to the pages that will tell you how to pay for school. And then I think this is the last demo slide, this is just an example of one of the posters that we are working on getting printed for our launch on February 4th. We are hoping to get a lot of these posters distributed to high schools first, so that a student who's walking through the halls can see it and just kind of scan the QR code and start exploring what they might be interested in after they graduate. We're hoping to host career fairs or come to career fairs and display futurity. We want to create some social media and digital toolkits that you all can use both in your digital promotions in your districts and in emails. And then finally, we just hope that this will be kind of shared with students both in classrooms and in the hallways, like I said, with these posters. Last slide, please. Like I said, our launch date is February 4th in the Capitol Rotunda. It's a public event, so if you're interested in joining and celebrating with us, you're welcome to. It is at the kickoff of Career and Technical Education Week, so we will be very excited to kind of talk about, these careers and help students, build their awareness for what they are doing in school, both in K-12 and in post-secondary. So that's all I have. I will pause, and if there are any questions or if anyone wants to send me an email, you can reach me at jfletcher@ky.gov. And that's all.
Jennifer, I think you're handling the questions. Do we have any questions about futurity that may have popped up throughout?
Stacy actually had those, Commissioner.
No,
Okay,
sir,
Stacey.
there are no questions at this time.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Fletcher, for being with us today. We really appreciate it. This looks like a great, I'm going to say pathway type project where students can follow through and see what pathway they want to be a part of. And then also to see the cost, see what there's just so much information. And I thank you for coming to our Student Advisory Council a few months ago to get input.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to have the toughest crowd in the room to give you input on how a website looks, how it interplays, go to a group of students. They were tough, but they had some great insight too. So again, thank you so much, Ms. Fletcher, for being a part of that and being helping us out with the futurity and all you do with CEC. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great day.
Next on our agenda, we have Human Trafficking Awareness with Ms. Christina Weeder. She is from the Office of Continuous Improvement and Support.
So good afternoon. This will be brief, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to let you all know about some work that we've been doing within our Division of Student Success. KDE has actually been working with other agencies to raise awareness around human trafficking among school-age youth for several years now. And we've recently created and updated some resources that we wanted to share with the field during Human Trafficking Awareness Month. So just to kind of give an overview, child trafficking is actually a reality in all 50 states and DC. Schools are a critical place where safe adults can notice warning signs, much like you would any kind of signs of child abuse. And so since January is National Human Trafficking Awareness Month, we wanted to kind of reiterate some of this information and remind folks that this is something that should be kind of attended to year round, not just during January. Shared Hope International is a nonprofit organization focused on the prevention of human trafficking, and they've created a report card. Unfortunately, Kentucky scored a D overall, in part due to lack of prevention and training efforts, particularly in schools. So this is why we wanted to reiterate some of this information that's available to help spread the word among educators across the state. Excuse me. Now, some of you may be aware that we have state legislation that requires posters in schools. Previously, KDE didn't have any sample posters that were available, but there is a requirement for the schools to display the National Human Trafficking Reporting Hotline. So we worked with our very talented graphics design team and communications to create a poster that includes some student-friendly information about the definition of trafficking. It also includes both the National Human Trafficking Hotline and the Child Abuse Hotline for Kentucky. And these posters are designed to really be student-friendly and visible in areas that students and adults frequent regularly. So these posters can really help students with some self-awareness when they might not even realize that they're in circumstances that align with the definition of student trafficking. Next slide, please. So this is a sample image of the poster that has been created, and we are working on developing or having this translated into Spanish. And once that's been done, we'll have that available on our website as well. On our website, we also have a one-page protocol for folks who work in schools. We've had that for a number of years, but have recently updated that. So take a look at that if you're not familiar with it. But it has some warning signs and action steps for educators and all the staff that are working in schools, you know, custodians, cafeteria folks, front office folks, all the people that come in contact with students can be aware of this. We also have all of these resources and more on our human trafficking webpage. So be sure to check that out. And then one of the resources that we have there is from the U.S. Department of Education, specifically on human trafficking in America's schools and what schools can do to prevent, respond, and help students recover from those situations. Next slide, please. So we outlined just a few next steps, and we know you and as superintendents can really be instrumental in helping raise awareness of the requirements and the resources related to this topic. Excuse me. So one next step is just to ensure that all schools in your district display these posters, or you don't have to use the KDE poster, but this hopefully makes it a little bit easier for you to meet that statutory requirement. Ensure that all adults in your buildings receive a copy of that one-page protocol that I mentioned just a moment ago. Consider incorporating training on this protocol into your school's professional development plan and potentially even your trauma-informed plans. Yep. And then explore options for prevention education with students. So that's what I've got today. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Weeder. We really appreciate that. And it's very sad that we even need to take time to have those type of protocols and posters, but it is unfortunately a very serious issue that we're dealing with not only across the Commonwealth, but across the country and across the world. So again, very important to know those warning signs and making sure we get that awareness information out there. And of course, if there's anything that we can do to help individual district, please reach out to Ms. Weeder. We'll do whatever we can to make sure we help you any way possible. So with that being in mind, prayers for anyone that's been affected by this, definitely. Next on our agenda, we do have the Kentucky K-12 Digital Readiness Report with Associate Commissioner David Couch and Bob Hackworth from the Office of Education Technology. So, Associate Commissioner Couch, over to you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll do an introduction of some folks because we're going to have a couple people present these next couple topics. Chuck Austin, who is right here, is been with us for close to 30 years. He's been a chief of our emerging technology and our Kentucky Education Technology field staff. And every major education technology initiative, really close to 30 years, Chuck has been involved with us helping deploy that. And he'll talk about the connected user experience. I also have Bob Hackworth, who is our chief cybersecurity officer. Bob has also probably been close to us with about 30 years, and he'll talk to us about the cybersecurity aspects at the end of this digital readiness report, along with the kind of fish that you don't want to catch. And then Marty Park is our chief digital officer. He's in charge of our digital learning team, our student technology leadership program, our libraries, computer science, and our IT academy that gives out IT credentials and certificates to students. And he's a big part of the digital readiness report. The information that we're sharing with you, we have shared it multiple times in multiple ways over the past 5 or 6 months with your district ed tech leaders and CIOs. For some of the information, I know Chuck traveled the state, is you have seen it in there as well. So we'll reemphasize that for those that saw it, and once again kind of brings it back on the radar screen. And I would say this in intro of the readiness report, having been in this role for 33 years, Kentucky K-12 is the pioneer and national leader in most every aspect of K-12 education technology, but we're always looking to get better. And I always remind folks that we were the very first state, for example, to have internet to every district in every classroom in the 1990s. And that takes us to our latest initiative that we have with the connected user experience going forward. And for example, we just recently, to kind of circle back the 1990s, most recently in July, we completed probably a year effort to upgrade the bandwidth of every school district by around 75% with the transition to Education Networks of America by Zayo's internet services that we partner with them for all of Kentucky K-12. Next slide, please. This is the information that we collect annually and have done so for decades. And I'm going to be talking about how we get this snapshot every year. We go through a planning process, and at the state and the district levels required to do plans. There is a technology activity report. This is the financial report that we have through our Munis system through the commodity codes that gives detail of where the financial spending is going, particularly for technology related items. We also have a digital readiness survey that goes out to every district, and a lot of the information that we gather from this report I'm sharing today comes from that digital readiness survey. And we also, at the end of every year, ask every district, and we have 100% compliance along with our staff and KDE, what are the top 5 things, 3 to 5 things we did well that calendar year, what are the top 3 to 5 things we didn't do well or should have got to that we didn't, and what should be our top 3 to 5 goals that drive us for the next calendar year. Next slide. So this is information on this next slide that's available through our website where you can compare your information that we collect to other districts around you, around region, the entire region, and once again, statewide. You can do trends over time. So once again, I want to make sure at the superintendent level, you have the capability to do some comparison to see how well you're doing of districts of your size, districts of your region, and districts between around the state. Next slide. This is an infographic that we do an update at least once a year, sometimes twice a year. We'll be updating it in the February timeframe. And it gives a snapshot of a variety of things beyond just the technology inventory on the people side of things as well, which is just as important, and also get feedback from students, from parents, from teachers, from schools and districts overall. And once again, if you go to the Office of Education Technology portion of the KD website and under infographic, you can see this information. And we have quite a bit beyond here, but just want to make sure you're aware of where we're drawing some of this information from and the nice graphic user interface that we have to display it. Next slide. From the Munis report, And Kentucky really does have an advantage over the other 49 states where we have a standardized financial management system and have done so since the 1990s, mid 1990s. And also the best probably accountability and understanding of all the different ed tech funding sources that are going toward education technology. And so you see here for the pandemic what the level was, and obviously during the pandemic, there is a lot of money going toward education technology. We're backward down to that downward path, and we need to somewhat address that. And it goes along with the additional budget requests that we've asked in the previous legislative session. We'll be asking in the current upcoming legislative session about addressing the funding that's needed for education technology in our schools and our services going forward. Next slide. These are cumulative numbers from around the state. And you can see we have over 1.1 million computers, and that's a 2.1% growth over the previous year. But interesting, you can see the types of devices that there are. With the Chromebook being at the 80% now, Windows desktops and laptops at 12.1%, Apple desktops and laptops at 1.6%, iPads by Apple at 5.4%. And these are the kind of trends you can see. But the next slide, really shows you the growth since 2014. So let's go to the next slide, please. Here's where you see the dramatic increase in the Chromebooks in a very short period of time, in a decade, in comparison. And you can see the dramatic decrease in all the other platforms that we have out there. And even the Chromebook, what we're seeing, it's just not for students. We're starting to see it being deployed for the adults. It's enough to do what they need to do, not 100%. Obviously, we have, still the percentage of Windows and Mac OS machines, but obviously the Chromebook is dominating and is increasing every year, as you can see from this chart. And I don't know when it actually starts, leveling out from that. Next, please. We're also interested for just not the summative testing at the end of the year, but any daily testing or interim testing you may be doing. These are the ones that are capable that we find out of that 1.1 million that can actually be part of giving instant feedback of any kind of daily, interim, or summative test to folks that are taking an online test, which is a significant increase in just not the number of devices, but also the testing companies recognizing the devices that we have to be able to take the test. Next slide. This is showing within the school. As I mentioned, we have high speed. The Kentucky Department of Education has an internet hub going into every district, and we've had that in place since 1995, obviously growing in capacity since that time. But within the school building, between your schools to that hub has been a significant increase as well every year. And also you can see the Wi-Fi connectivity within your school buildings is extremely high as well. Once again, these are statewide numbers. Next slide. We get a lot of questions, and definitely came up during the pandemic, of internet access beyond the school campus. And these numbers have dropped pretty steadily during the years. Kentucky was the only state of the 49 states, and we were well positioned during the pandemic to know the connectivity beyond the school campus. And that's something that we've been tracking for 10 or 20 years. Nearly every other state really didn't have a handle on that, and it served us well during the pandemic, where we could give accurate numbers of percentages of students that didn't have it. And we went through a name and claim where districts obviously went through a very specific thing to identify the students that did not have it. But you can see from our latest data, and this is 6,000 more students than the previous year, but it's still 22,000 students that do not have home internet access. But for those that don't have it out of the 3.5%, you can see it drops down to 1.1% if they have someplace close by they can go to get internet access. And once again, you have 1.1, it's not close by, it's not at their home. And once again, we want that to be 100%. But there are certain homes that we found, and actually during the pandemic, where the parent does not want internet access at the home. So that's never going to be 100%. But once again, to educate folks about this number, and also the affordability connectivity program, which ended in March of 2024, we were interested, would it impact, this was a federal program that helped pay for about $300 a year of internet access for low-income parents. That ended in March, but a lot of these technology companies offer discounts for low-income parents, And there's a federal Lifeline program that offers $10 a month as well. So we did not see a significant drop when that federal program is funding it, is one of the teaching points. Next slide. The people side of things is just important as the techno widget side. Next slide. And we spent time going over this with your staff, and I'll just pick out a couple ones of, you can see how it works. So we're interested in how many of the ed tech leaders report directly to the superintendent. We're really interested with things like the CUES initiative, of how well the superintendent has already been informed of things that of things we have already informed somebody within your district about. And obviously, if there are levels down from a direct report from you, that makes it tougher to make sure you're updated. But this is a good sign. A very high percentage of school districts have their ed tech leader CIO reporting directly to their superintendent. We're also interested in, toward the bottom of this, is the data. Do you have data stewards for data? And do you have, someone that's in charge of overall data quality? Chuck also be talking about an exercise he just went through. I think it was last Thursday, where a big part of the connected user experience is data cleanup and data quality as we move forward. So those types of things that we're looking at in that arena. Next slide. You can see the spending went slightly up. I'd say overall we have a people side of technology study. I think it's the best one done in the United States, but it actually has a formula in there of the amount of staff that we recommend that a district has based upon a variety of variables that's unique to a district. So if you're wondering if you have enough, and obviously a very high percentage of districts do not have enough for the size and scale of all the things that use technology, just not from the traditional computers, but phone systems, security systems, and all the other things that the technology staff gets involved with, is you're significantly underfunded. But it's good to see that some of the funding has been increased a little bit. Next slide. We also spent some time on the tools that we have out there. We have a lot of folks who has what, and we point people to this, and I point back what are you using for an individual learning plan, for example, and you can see what other districts are doing in comparison to you. This is the graphic on the top left-hand side there. And once again, this information that your ed tech leader, this has been shared with them as well, so they can share with you the details. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I just want you to make sure you're aware of some important information that's available to them. Next. This also has some key things to bring out. Or do you have a student technology leadership program? That's one of the best ways of student-based learning, and show the difference in this project-based learning in the classroom that technology can make. We have about 60,000 students that are part of that, and you can see the number of schools and districts that are there. You can also see, how many do we have in the, taking computer science opportunities beyond the hour code, which is an important stat that we take a look at. What is your approach to a learning management system? And, very few districts don't have that. And if they do have it, what do they have? And also for online virtual, how many have a full-time option? How many do non-resident enrollment? And it's something we capture every year for a variety of reasons. Next slide. And this circles back to, we still have digital, a certain amount of districts that, even though we have digital driver's license and really emphasize the 9 elements of being a good digital citizen, that helps us out from a variety of perspectives. It usually links to the responsible use policy that districts have, but it's always important as we're immersed in more and more technology that we remain our good people skills and people interaction skills. And so we're always trying to address this, and this has been important since I started back in 1992. As we started implementing technology, it's always been important to the legislators and parents and the general public. Are we addressing the people side and being good digital citizens? And the next slide, please. I'll spend a little time with this one, and this is one that Bob Hackworth's going to help me out with, and I'll have him just go right to his fishing part. But this is part we call security baseline, and not publicly reported means up on our website, we don't have which districts are doing this and not doing this. All the other data that we have will show what specific districts are doing something and not doing something. This one, for cybersecurity reasons, we did not want to point out which districts, have not done the following. And this, once again, is information that's being shared, has been shared multiple times in ways with the appropriate person or folks within your district, but felt it was really important to bring it to your attention as well, especially if that's not been brought to your attention before. Multi-factor authentication on the top left-hand side is something that most everyone now has adopted in their personal life. And one of the major things, you take a look at anyone that's had a major cybersecurity incident, multi-factor authentication has greatly reduced the probability of having a major embarrassing incident and loss of information. As do these other things that we talk about. Do you have them in place? And if there's ever an incident we have in Kentucky, we take a look at, and you'll want to take a look at, what did I do to prevent this? Now, every year the district has to prevent a cybersecurity health check report by law in August. And this is one of the things that you can show your board and give confidence to your public that you're taking steps to protect the information that we have. Now, Bob, I'm going to let you hit upon a couple of the items that we have starred here that we really want to share with them out of this slide.
Sure, David. Thank you. And if you look down there at the bottom two places where we have starred, these are new items for this year and super important, both of them, for not just your district security, but for the Kentucky K-12 overall security. And the thing that's pretty exciting about these is that these are essentially free, or your district already has what it takes to implement these, which is pretty exciting. That first one, which has the little heading under it, have you implemented external network vulnerability testing through the CISA free scanning service or another partner? CISA it stands for the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. That's a federal agency. It's part of the Department of Homeland Security. And they provide a free service that essentially kind of looks at your district and your district's network through the eyes of a hacker, and where are all the open doors that they could get through. And they will send a report every week outlining where all those holes are that they found. KDE does this. We take advantage of this service. And as you can see, when we sent this survey out, we have 71 districts also taking part in this already, but we still have over 100 not doing it. And that's a real warning sign to me. For one, this is a free service, and so it doesn't cost anything else. And two, we had several districts last year end up with data breaches that frankly could have been prevented. Some of them very serious data breaches that could have been prevented if they had this service in place at that time, or a service similar to this. You don't have to use this one. You can pay for your own if you feel more comfortable with that. But this service is pretty key in helping your district understand where some of your vulnerabilities are, some of your key ones that would allow someone to just sort of search on the internet and find that you've got an open door, for instance, onto your network. And frankly, that happens more often than we'd like to think, simply because technology changes, on the weekly, monthly, annual basis. Sometimes those holes open up where there weren't holes, last week, last month, that sort of thing. And so we really, really want to make sure that every district is aware, and that you as superintendent are aware that this service is out there, that it's free, and that it's available and it's easy to sign up for. It just takes filling out a form, and then your district will be a lot more protected from attackers trying to get to you from the internet than it was previous. This is something that if you're a Fortune 100 company, a Fortune 500 company, if you're just an important company, for instance, they already do this. They will pay for this for themselves to make sure that this gets taken care of. Here's something that's free for us, and I highly encourage you to take advantage of that.
Bob, if I can make a comment about it, the
Sure.
frequency. They can do this report for you weekly. They can do this report for you monthly. They can do quarterly. Obviously, you got to look at it and have with someone looking at it. And I would equate this, Bob, you talked about a wide open door. We know in physical security of school buildings, a vulnerability you have is someone that left a back door open, or they've cracked a back door. And there's the equivalent in the cyber world is you have folks that are constantly trying to break in the system. And so they look at that as an open door that they can creep through, or as a window that's not been locked. This goes through and looks for that on your behalf. And as Bob said, what we found in a breach, and particularly a major breach, is this was not a service that was in place, and it was easily would have been caught by even the average person. And there's something changed in the district. Something was offline, somebody brought online, And this is a really good preventative tool, and it's free. And once again, the agency, we you can say eat our own dog food or drink our own champagne. We walk typically with everything we ask districts to do. In education technology, we do ourselves, and this is a service that Bob updates me on regularly within our organization. What do we have, and what do we have to address? And the good news for us is, we've been, this is help. This really hasn't caught anything, but it tells us that we don't have anything major there. But we really want people regularly checking our organization. And for you, if you have an incident, one of the first things asked by the general public, by anyone investigating it, was, did you have some way to prevent this? And the reason we thought it was so important to bring this to your attention is yes. Now, as Bob said, you don't have to use this particular tool, but you should be using something, whether it's paid for or something else, and have the discussion with the appropriate people within your organization. Are you using this tool? And if not, why not? And are you doing something similar within your organization? What we're finding is those that aren't using it, I've not found one yet, and maybe Bob accepts it, they're not using anything either in its place. So that's why Bob said it is, but we're not aware when we ask them if they're using anything else. Bob, will you go talk about the next topic, or if you want to follow up on that one?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up on that. If you reach out to someone in your district and they're unaware of it for some reason, or they say it's too difficult to implement, have them reach out to me, and I can work with them and CISA, and we'll try to smooth out that process and make it either more understandable or help fill out forms or something like that. Because this is too important to kind of let go, and it's too good of an opportunity not to take advantage of. So the second item here, which is, have you implemented or enabled geo-blocking to your cloud accounts to block every nation other than the USA? So what does that mean? Geo-blocking means block entire sections of the world from being able to access your network or your login accounts. However you get to your email every day, or your cloud accounts, your cloud shares, that sort of thing. And I mentioned this multiple times. It's one of those figures that's really hard for me to believe, but every 2 to 3 hours, over 5,000 criminal login attempts happen to KDE logins every day, every 2 to 3 hours. So in the span of time we've been having this meeting, there have been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people trying to log into KDE staff accounts. I don't have data about district accounts, but you could find those data yourself at your district. But I don't imagine that a school district is going to be any different from KDE, to be honest. Now, a lot of these attackers are trying to get into, for example, someone who works with money or HR, but everybody at KDE has a chance to have their account targeted, and we all go through it. Geo-blocking will prevent a vast majority of these from even getting into your account, or even being able to even try to log into it. And so if someone is trying to log into your account from China, from North Korea, from Ukraine, from Russia, geo-blocking can eliminate them from getting in no matter what. And so unless you have specific interests in one of these countries, we recommend blocking pretty much everything. Now, there are still people who are going to try to get into your account from the USA. And we have thousands of those happening every, several days, if you cumulatively. That's why we have MFA. That helps keep them out. Nothing's 100%, but that really helps keep them out. And so if you look at this chart, the vast majority of districts have implemented geo-blocking to prevent anyone from around the world from even having a hope to get into their account. And that's what we want to do. There are still 40 as of when this survey went out. I definitely want to help those districts get to the point where they're blocking the rest of the world as well. Again, there could be valid reasons if there's some sort of business going on, if there's some reason why they're not blocking certain countries. I get that, but we want to block all the ones that we can, just to eliminate that from being a risk. And then you can always unblock if you want, if for some reason you're traveling there, you've got people going, that sort of thing, even though that obviously opens up a little bit of risk. David?
Yeah, and I want to when you see the 174 number, That includes 171 districts, the Kentucky School of Deaf, Kentucky School of Blind, and KD, the agency here in Frankfurt. These are all the folks that are using our Kentucky K-12 internet service. Obviously, our 50, 51 area technology centers are using it as well from the district level. So that's when you see these numbers. One thing I would add, and this is mainly for you to have a discussion with those that lead technology or cybersecurity for your district, to have discussions, see what did we answer on this chart? And I would just ask for password characters. Is if you're still using 8, then you're really upping your probability of someone breaking into your system. Typically, we talk about phrases, so you have a bigger number, go up to 15 characters. A very small percentage go up to 16, but definitely 8 is a big risk. And there's ways that can do it. We shared with your ed tech leaders through phrases, and you can see the next one. How often do you change them? But you need to have that discussion now before incident. Typically, folks get real serious about this, Bob, and they had an incident, and they're really knowledgeable. You can't get hardly their attention until it goes bad. So obviously, have these discussions. That's one of the purposes that we of the cybersecurity health check. So hopefully, you've had that discussion. But I wanted to provide this information to you as well. So Bob, if you could also just talk about the phishing. Let's go on to the phishing part of this. Sure. And if you can give that intro that we talked about the size and scale.
Yeah, you bet, David. And I don't have any visual aids for this one, but I did have a few things I wanted to talk about here, and I want to start off with a percentage just to kind of set the stage and the magnitude of the threat for phishing. And I think everyone kind of sees that this is. Oh, did our slide go away?
The slide.
Since you're talking, I just took it down so they could see.
Okay. All right.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great too.
All right.
So this is phishing with a PH, not with an F. And so this is the least favorite kind of phishing, although I've had some pretty bad phishing with an F days as well, to be perfectly candid with you. But anyway, so over 90% of all security incidents and data breaches start with a successful phishing email that tricks the victim. And I think that's just an amazing statistic. Over 90% of all security incidents will start with a successful phishing email that tricks the victim. I mean, so that makes it obvious that focusing some energy and time and preventing phishing emails from being successful and limiting how many of those get to your staff can make a huge difference, across Kentucky and across the world, to be honest with you. And education is the end.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Education is the industry that's most targeted by malware, and it gets to us through our email and through phishing emails. So maybe we're not going to be at the top of the list for a whole lot longer, though, as pandemic relief funds kind of dwindle away, and because, the crooks are trying to get money. But we've got so much data that we're never going to fall out of the top 10 of those most targeted industries, I'm afraid. And so that's something we're always going to have to be on the lookout for. And education has been like close to 80% of where all the malware has been going. And so it's not like we're just barely in the lead. We're phenomenally in the lead of the most targeted industry. And so we want to make sure that we up our defenses as much as possible. The things that we talked about just in the last slide, those are important. We want to make sure that folks understand that if they get an email that they're not sure about, they probably shouldn't be clicking on it. They need to be asking their technology folks. They need to be asking the person beside them, saying, hey, did you get this? Call the person, that sort of thing. Like I said, a lot of the most targeted staff are going to be your HR and finance folks, or folks who can make decisions. We're coming up on tax time, so you're going to start getting a lot of fishes asking for W-2s and that sort of thing. And so if anyone gets an email saying, send me your W-2s, that's probably not legit. Probably one of the worst fishes that I've seen in a while, we had right before Thanksgiving, and I'm afraid some of you probably know exactly what I'm about to talk about because your district was probably a victim. But I want to give everybody kind of a heads up now that I've got them. And so this was just a single fish, and it happened it was like a few weeks. There were probably a few weeks where folks were vulnerable right before Thanksgiving, and then it all came to a head the night before Thanksgiving. And that's not a coincidence. You know, crooks know when our holidays are and when people are going to be on hand to do stuff to try to prevent or remedy the situation. And so right before Thanksgiving, right before Christmas, you know, right before any of the big major holidays where people just leave and go on vacation, that's when we're the most vulnerable. And so right before Thanksgiving, we had about 24 staff from about as many districts that were compromised by a phishing attack. And then a lot of others, when we went back and looked, found that they were also targets, but they didn't fall for it. So when successful, that attack, which came from a legitimate Dropbox email, but it was from an attacker saying, I want to share this file with you. And it looked vaguely like someone the victim knew. And so when it was successful, the attack gave the attacker full access to the victim's username, password, their multi-factor authentication settings, so they could add their own MFA settings, their email, their cloud accounts, and it copied the victim's entire mailbox, which includes attachments, calendar, and the to-do list, to an unknown offsite location so the attacker could look at that and read it and review it at their leisure, pretty much, and do whatever they wanted with the information that was found inside the mailbox. So that's pretty scary stuff. And it, you know, certainly made me stop and think, okay, what's in my mailbox? And maybe I need to go through my mailbox and pull certain things out that maybe shouldn't be stored there. And I encourage everyone here to think about doing the same. Try to keep that mailbox as pruned as possible, to be honest with you. So the phish was sent, like I said, from a legitimate email out of Dropbox. And one of the things that that I think is so sad about this, you know, if someone had just recognized that they didn't ask for anything coming out of Dropbox, and so why did they click on it? You know, it's one of those things where if you get a PowerPoint and someone says, here's the PowerPoint you requested, well, did I actually request a PowerPoint? And if I didn't request it, why would I look at it? You know, that's exactly one of those things that I would send to my IT folks and say, hey, is this a phish? Did it have a yellow banner across the top saying, caution, this is from, you know, outside of your environment or something? If it's got a yellow banner, then that's definitely one of those ahas, is like, maybe I need to be careful with this. You know, it looks like it came from someone in my school district, or it looks like it came from David Couch, but it's got that yellow banner. Maybe that really isn't David Couch sending me that, or maybe it's not really my finance officer, that sort of thing. And so those are the kind of aha things you can look at and actually take action on, and encourage all of your staff to take action on to try to prevent getting phished like the one we had just before Thanksgiving. The phishes are getting a lot better with artificial intelligence. So a lot of those old things, like there's lots of common misspellings and it doesn't look like real English, a lot of that stuff is kind of going away. You can't always depend on your phish looking like it was written by someone who doesn't really understand English. So that's something I just ask and hope everyone's pretty careful with going forward in the future.
Bob, if I can mention
David?
about Dropbox, it's used a lot. You know, we're finding that in these scams, and that it should be rare, if ever, that a district is using Dropbox. We already have, if you look at the numbers I shared with before about digital readiness, is every district is using Office 365 or Google, and those have the capabilities to store and share information. So another discussion you should have with your leadership is anybody using Dropbox, and why? Given that you already have tools that can do this, and it stops them from being duped from something like this, where we had, you know, pretty healthy percentage of folks within districts not understanding the district really doesn't use Dropbox. There's some risk associated with that versus the other products that the districts already use for Office 365 and from Google.
Absolutely right, David. And in my closing comments, I do want to thank everybody on the call, all the superintendents, everybody here, because I know we're getting a lot of things right. We're, you know, every day we get a million things right, and I don't want to diminish that in any way, shape, or form. This is just some things that we can add to that pile, and I think it's important for us to do that. So thank you all very, very much.
Thanks, Bob. Next up, we'll hit upon our connected user experience. So if we can bring that one up. We're going to go through some slides here with Chuck Austin. So as an intro, since at least 2003, we have been using Microsoft Active Directory. So you'll hear that term where your technology say person say AD. And that's been a shared service that our Office of Education Technology has provided to all 174 organizations and paid for. Those 1.1 systems that I shared with you and beyond that use this technology in some way, the Active Directory system in some way, the identity management system. And so we recently did a bid for what do we want for our next generation product. And obviously the existing folks with all of our folks can bid on it, as well as folks beyond that. And our next generation bid was won by Identity Management. So it is our intent, just not our intent, we've identified the initial and ongoing funding sources to pay for it. So we will continue to pay for that. So I know that's always up on the superintendent's radar screen. Is this new? The functionality, the type of thing we're doing is not new. We've been doing it since 2003. There'll be a transition of one provider to another, which happens when you do bids, and we will continue to pay for it. An important part of this that Chuck will hit on, and we hit on with the staff regularly, is besides, Chuck, you've just gone through the cooperatives across the state and had this discussion. So for some superintendents, you recognize Chuck, he's already gone through that. And you may have picked up X%. It will be helpful for you to hear it again. We spent time on this with our Kentucky Society for Technology Education Conference, which had a huge percentage of your ed tech leaders attend in the fall timeframe. I'd say for every month for the past 12 months, we've been talking about this topic. But it's just not from the technology perspective. Chuck, I know you cover this. This is 10% a technology initiative and 90% a people initiative. And the important part is you must have good communications or start establishing those good communications with all your senior leaders on this particular topic in your district office, because this goes beyond the CIO. This involves chief financial officer, your HR folks. They must all be in lockstep with this. And so that's a big part of the communications team. And I'm hopeful that a very high percentage of you, for the superintendents and CFOs, this is not brand new information. In fact, you've already started this discussion, given this is 90% a people side issue and 10% a technology issue. So Chuck, I'll let you take off and you can advance the next slide.
Thank you, David. So first of all, I do want to thank all the superintendents that tuned in for an opportunity to meet you folks over the last several months as I visited our education cooperatives. Been a great opportunity, at least just to make sure that, at the top of the food chain in every district, you are aware of what we're doing and why, and what the expected outcomes are. And Bob, I really appreciate you kind of queuing up, no pun intended, this conversation, because when you talk about user accounts, okay, login IDs and passwords, what we're really talking about are folks' identities. And really, at the end of the day, the connected user experience, which is something that's been in the works now for a couple of years, primarily based on feedback that we receive every single year from all of our ed tech leaders across the state. We have a top 5 feedback report, and it identifies, we ask our customers, you as school districts, for the top 5 things we do well, the things that we didn't do well, and what do we need to focus on the following calendar year. And for the last 3 years, the connected user experience has made the top 5 of what districts are asking us to help implement. So that being said, a lot of these slides you're going to see today, I went over as we visited the co-ops. They were presented, as David has mentioned, directly to your ed tech leaders, as well as at different conferences and events. So if we could move to the next slide, the vision behind the connected user experience, which is really all about just making sure that we have efficient and secure ways to connect our end users, students, staff, and teachers to the technology resources they need. But in taking it a step deeper, it's also to make sure that every participant in our learning environment, all right, has timely access to the technology resources they need as they're hired, as they're enrolled, as they enter our facilities, and also to empower our teachers, all right, to ensure they can keep our students connected, all right, in real time to those education technology resources. And from that, we've got 4 primary goals that we've outlined, 4 outcomes that we hope to achieve. Goal number 1, these are written on the screen, to establish a single secure identity for all students, teachers, and staff, and eliminate multiple IDs, multiple passwords, all right, and the confusion that centers around that. Goal number 2, to automate the timely creation and removal of these identities or accounts, user accounts and passwords, by integrating directly with Munis, which is the source of truth for staff, and Infinite Campus as a source of truth for students. And this is so important because what we're attempting to do is to eliminate the manual processes that we currently have today that create a lot of inefficiencies. Goal number 3 is to acknowledge and recognize that K-12 is very different due to age and ability when it comes to technology usage and access. So we need to make sure we can deliver a solution that not only integrates systems together, but provides access to students and teachers to meet their ability levels to access their services. And goal number 4, and obviously, Bob, you've been speaking to this, David, you spoke to this for the last few minutes, to make sure that we establish some role appropriate cybersecurity standards, as Bob mentioned earlier, for our folks out there on the finance side that have access to our finance systems, our enrollment staff that have access to really, really sensitive student information. Your identity security, your account security needs to be heightened, which makes sense. And we also need to make sure that we implement what I'll call some protective identity security measures, some preventative measures, things that don't rely upon solely an individual having to know what to do or what's the right or wrong move. It helps them identify that. So next slide, please. So this slide touches a little bit deeper on the K-12 centric features that I allude to. For example, as the proud father of 2 teachers, all right, and a daughter-in-law who's a teacher, and a shout out to Superintendent Atkins at Woodford County, shameless plug, all right, because all 3 of them work there. But, we need to make sure that for the younger age groups, all right, they have a really easy and simple but secure way of logging in every day. And that's what we mean by age-appropriate authentication. We need to make sure that your experience, regardless of the device you're using, all right, to access your systems and services, all right, is consistent and it's similar. I've already touched upon the appropriate levels of identity security based on who you are and what you need access to. Delegated self-service account management. The opportunity, for example, for a teacher to reset a student's password, something as simple as that, just to keep them connected to the learning environment, has so much power associated with it. And ultimately, as David mentioned, this is something that we've known for a while, that we needed to provide as a state shared service. So we are going to be retiring an existing legacy service, as you mentioned earlier, and redirecting that operational funding source over to cover the cost ongoing, both from an implementation and sustainment perspective for the future of this new solution. Next slide, please. So as David mentioned, Identity Automation is the company that went through a very, very competitive process back in the summer and was awarded a new 10-year contract as our new KET standard for identity and directory services. They are an award-winning company that has been implemented in a couple of different states, as well as really, really large school districts across the country. They had previously been implemented in Jefferson County Schools, Owensboro Independent, Warren County, and Jessamine County. So we've landed a partner that has experience within KETS, experience within Kentucky, and experience nationally and recognized for that. Next slide, please. As David mentioned, the most important part of this initiative is bringing together all the respective folks within a school district to work together and to really strive together toward those common outcomes. Because at the end of the day, here's what we want to make sure of. We want to make sure when new staff members are hired, when new students are enrolled, that the day of, they have access to the technology resources they need. All right. It's really, really that simple. That's what we're trying to achieve, as well as making sure that that level of access is secure. So we've reached out to our superintendents and we're working with your ed tech leaders to make sure they bring that team together, focus on outcomes, start identifying some processes that may need to be tweaked, especially around timing of enrollment and hiring, to make sure that aligns with the day upon which they're going to be entering our facilities, as well as data cleanup. And this is something, David, that literally just last week, we had a statewide webcast with over 400 participants where we talked through the initial phase of this project. We delivered on December the 17th some information directly to your EdTech leaders that talk about some key action items that you need to do to prepare for this. And really, those action items are pretty simple. It's all about assembling your team and making sure at that level, everyone's on the same page. It's identifying those processes that you've got internally. It's looking at the data elements we're going to leverage from Infinite Campus and Munis, which is a small number. Had a great question from a superintendent just a week ago. And here's the bottom line. For the most part, if you've got folks that are successfully getting paid and you've got kids that are getting grades, your data should be in pretty good shape. So hopefully there's going to be very little cleanup that's necessary. And then ultimately some action items just to validate and complete that process so that we can help you move to the next phase in this. Next slide, please. And overall, this is just a snapshot of a timeline that we're looking at between now and the end of June of 2026. What you'll see right now is we are in the data standardization, cleanup, and process evaluation phase. That's the phase we just kicked off last week statewide. We're going to be moving early, or shall I say early spring, late winter, into a pilot and early adopter phase, probably mid to late February. There's going to be a big event we have with our KISTI partnership at the spring conference, where there's going to be a lot of sessions, a lot of details about this product, this initiative, and how we're going to implement it. We'll begin implementation, obviously, later this spring, all throughout the summer of 26. And all this information is going to be funneled directly through to your CIOs, through our KETS field staff, your respective regional advisory group members, which we've assembled. And I just want to thank you guys for your time today and just point you to the last slide, which is we do have an information hub that we've established for all districts to have access to, which should be the single source for information that you need for anything and everything regarding the initiative. David, thank you for that.
So I think we already have districts doing this.
Absolutely.
How many districts do we have already, Daniel, on Mason?
Well, I mean, we've got 4 districts in the state today
Right.
that have Rapid Identity, which is their product.
Right.
And we've already got apparently about a half dozen districts since last Thursday that said, hey, we're good. We're ready to go to the next level.
Including our largest districts already.
Jefferson County School. That's
Yeah,
correct.
so you definitely can scale high.
Yep.
So some final comments, Commissioner, and I, thanks for the entire package of listening to us about our digital readiness and then our cybersecurity part and the connected user experience. One thing I meant to mention in Bob's portion about the phishing is there's some free services that you can use to actually do testing of phishing. Katie agency, as the Commissioner knows, we did a phish test to see, we put something out for our staff to see, what percentage, went for it, did not go for it. And then there was professional learning that we did with the folks that did do it to try to get them better. I think every organization, I really recommend that. Most of the tools are free out there that allows you to do that in your organization. And I want to circle back to the discussion we had with the big fish that we had back in the November timeframe. Is a good number of folks that got duped by the Dropbox. Their district does not use Dropbox internally. Obviously, if there are legitimate uses of Dropbox in your organization, that's fine. But what we found is the districts and they had staff duped by it didn't realize the district doesn't use Dropbox and they already have Office 365 and Google Drive. And so what you have in these scams, you have somebody pretending to really be Dropbox or using Dropbox when they're really going through a scam. And once again, if the district didn't use it at all, that would not happen to the district at all. So just educating your staff on what you already have versus going out and say, well, we must have this, even though I've never heard about it. So thanks, Commissioner, and thanks everyone for the time on education technology today.
Thank you, David. We really appreciate it. And my time here and also with going through co-ops and seeing the work of OET, I can always feel like that. I always feel like there's 4 main descriptions that you can look for the work that we do. I think it's efficiency when it comes to OET and many other areas, accessibility, safety, and cost effectiveness. So we really appreciate those lenses, if you will, that our OET group uses in order to help our district when it comes to technology. Again, efficiency, I think is huge for us, accessibility, safety, and also cost effectiveness. So again, thank you to Associate Commissioner Couch and everyone else that's a part of this call, and all in the department too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next slide, please. I hate to kind of end on there's some positive here, but there's also some things I need to make you aware of as a group of superintendents. First and foremost, as we all know, this has been a very unusual year, and I'm not going to talk about budget at the beginning, but when I talk about unusual year, we're talking about everything from the issue in Laurel County, the shooting on, I think it was exit 49. And then so many districts across the state have had threats of gun violence and others. We've also had even closings for hurricanes. We've had closings for, and now, of course, the weather events that we're going through now and seem to be that will be coming again in the near future. There's been a lot of discussion about NTI days and expanding those. So there's a lot of conversations among superintendents. Superintendents have reached out to me. I've also reached out to legislators. We've talked a little bit about the potential for adding NTI days, but please know that statutorily, districts have 10 NTI days. So I am promoting an additional 5 days for districts at this point in order to help out with all the issues that we've had. Now, again, there's no decision that's been made. We're not to the point where there's something where the state legislators made any changes. But I do want you to know that there's a lot of discussions with legislators. And if you're interested in those additional NTI days, I would recommend talking with your legislator. Everybody's been very receptive. I will talk every time I've talked to a legislator about this. They've been very receptive. It's just making sure we take those steps, especially when we come back in February. I know it doesn't help us a lot in the next few days, but again, making sure that we talk with our legislators about possibly some type of emergency work on adding NTI or other ideas that you may have. So again, if you're interested, by all means, you're welcome to reach out to me, but also too, I think it's very important that you talk with your legislators about that. And again, they have been open, so I'm very thankful. The other thing is something that, I'm sure that this happened, I can think of at least one time, if not 2 times during my tenure as superintendent. We are facing a SEEK shortfall. The last 2 years have been very promising, and as far as we've had excess funding, I'll call it excess funding, and well over I think over 150 million has been raked into the general fund. But in the last process, there was some changes that caused a little bit of a issue for us. And what happens is there's basically 2 different areas that I'm going to talk just about briefly. And one, there are some things that we're statutorily required to meet. For example, SEEK, early graduation, key scholarships, and then of course the tier 1 adjustment is one category of where we're falling short, and that's almost $12 million. The second one deals with property assessment growth adjustment and property assessment growth relief, which is, we may also remember that as being the clawback clause, if you will, and also January growth. We're looking at almost 28 million of shortfall for right at $40 million of shortfall. I will tell you there's essentially 3 steps moving forward as we work with the Office of the State Budget Director and also with our legislators. One, they could do nothing, which means that funding, that shortfall falls back to districts. And then second of all, it could be that they help us with what's statutorily required, which would be to the tune of $12 million. The last one, of course, is to fund all, which would be up to $40 million. And some of those are, quote unquote, subject to available funds. And that's the way it's been for years. There are some parts of the SEEK formula that's, again, I'm sorry, some of the statutory languages that are subject to available funds. And that, again, was another 28 million. I do want to give you some reasons for this. And I actually talked to OFO and I said, okay, I want to know reasons why we're in this shortfall that we are now. And one of those goes back to our AADA and fall growth. On the estimates that were made, we're about 4,000 under the estimates that we are looking at for fall growth. That's only about a 0.7% difference, but again, that turns into dollars. Another issue is property assessments. There was across our Commonwealth for at least in Lawrence County for a couple of years, there was huge property growth. And then this past year, there seems to be kind of a leveling off. So the estimate for that property growth, we overestimated. When I say the Office of State Budget, working with KDE and others, we overestimated what the property growth would be. Since we overestimated, we also overestimated what the local effort would be. So in other words, the local effort will be less because of this, which means that our effort has to be more. So that's another reason for this budget shortfall. Other add-ons that were some differences that are contributing to the SEEK shortfall deals with the increase in the number of at-risk students, which is an add-on. Language English proficiency, there's about an 8,000 difference in what we estimated in the growth versus how many additional LDP students we have. But also special education in the high incidence, moderate, and severe areas. So again, I wanted to share that with you. The exact numbers are again rolling in. We are working with legislators to see how they can help us, and hopefully they will. They've listened so far. I've reached out to talk to a few so far. Again, those discussions are preliminary. Hopefully we get some relief from our legislators. But again, I wanted to make you aware, and again, I can't give you exact dollar amounts per district because the final seat calculations will likely not be finished till March 1. So again, this is me making you aware. These are things that just want to make you aware of where we are and some of the issues that we're having when it comes to SEEK shortfall. I apologize for ending a very informative meeting on a low note, but I am hoping that we do have some help from our state legislator or even our Office of State Budget Director. So we're working together with those to see what we can do. As we get a final answer, I'll get back with you. Probably won't have anything definite till February as far as numbers and the things of that nature till the legislature comes back in session. But we are continuing conversations with our state legislators right now concerning this topic. Again, don't like delivering that type of message, but it is where we are at this current moment. With that being said, if you have some questions, there's a lot of things that are up in the air. I don't have a lot of solid answers, especially if you're going to ask about your specific district. I don't have an answer for that right now. Again, because the final seat calculations will not be finished until somewhere around March 1. So, but other than that, I'll be happy to ask and answer whatever I can. Also, you can reach out to Matt Ross and OFO to see what else we can do as far as information. That being said, I do appreciate all the things that you do. Please keep everyone safe. Please make sure that that you're looking out for our students and our staff members. Most importantly, I do appreciate each of you being all in each and every day. Have a good one. Hopefully we'll see you in some town halls coming up.